Hey, what's up? It's Jake from Nimbus DevOps, and I wanted to show you an alternative to using the AWS CLI, and that is using the AWS Python SDK. So, in order to get started, make sure you have Python installed. You should be able to have type Python and get your version and stuff. You can do a check for pip because we're going to use that to install something. And in order to get started, all you need is something called Boto3. So you can do a pip install of Boto3. And if you try to do it in here and you get an error, simply open an administrator PowerShell window, and you can do it here, pip install Boto3, and that should give you what you need. So once you have that installed, then you can actually start doing things with Python instead of the AWS CLI. And this is useful for either integrating AWS resource manipulation, or describing resources or creating resources inside of your application, or just using the native benefits that come with having a programming language like Python for things like conditions and loops and things like that that are not available to you in like CloudFormation or something like that, because there are a lot of limitations with declarative type coding. So let's try this out. So now that I've got this installed, I should be able to use it. So in the AWS CLI, I might do like AWS S3 LS, and I get a list of my S3 buckets. So if I make a new file, and let's just call this s3.py, what you do is you're going to import Boto3. Now that I have it installed, it should be there. And then I'm just going to make a variable called S3, and I'm going to go Boto3 dot, and then I'm going to use this library resource, and let's just look for S3. Okay, so now I have a variable, and that variable should have a resource, and we can make requests to the service now and do like for bucket in s3.buckets.all, and then let's say we want to print out the names. Print bucket.name. All right, so now I should be able to run this script and I get my bucket names. So this is a simple way to basically do the same thing as running AWS S3 LS, but notice I don't get the dates or the times or whatever, but that's because I specifically asked for the bucket.name. I didn't ask for bucket.date created or time or any of the other stuff. So there's other ways you can do it. But let's say I want to upload like this test Python file to a bucket, right? So what I could do is in here, I could say I'm going to make some data, and I'm going to open my file, what is it, test.py, and I want to RB, read bucket, and I'm going to say s3.bucket, and then I'll just pick one, like dad, doesn't matter, Nimbus DevOps. We'll just put it in here. Stick it in Nimbus DevOps bucket, and then I'm going to do a put object, and then the key is going to be, test.py, and the body will be the data. So what I'm doing is basically putting an object, test.py, into this bucket, Nimbus DevOps, with the body of this being the data that's in here, if that makes sense. And that should be it. So now, let's say I want to, let's just comment this out for now because I don't really need to know the bucket names. Save it and then run it again. There we go. So now that's basically how you put an object in S3. Pretty easy, huh? If you were going to check this, I guess we could check it, right? And go see what's in there. Then you could do some kind of AWS LS command to to get a list of objects. So if I did like AWS S3 LS, it lists the buckets, right? If I did AWS S3 and I want to look at a specific bucket, then I would say LS, but I want S3 / Nimbus DevOps. And there we go. Here's my test.py, and it was uploaded successfully. So now you could actually have a script that does logic and does like for object in directory, upload this to a S3 bucket, and then remove it from the directory and set that up on some sort of trigger. You can do it as a Lambda function, you can do it on a cron job, you can do whatever you want, but it gives you a little bit more flexibility instead of just using the AWS CLI command, because maybe you don't have the AWS CLI set up on there, but you're going to need either way to set up your AWS configure so that you do have credentials. So you're going to have to figure out a way that works for you and your organization to do that. But if you're just doing this on your own, on your laptop or your PC or whatever, you can run AWS configure so you have access, which is why I'm even able to read these buckets and then be able to manipulate those objects. So that's like a little quick down and dirty use of using Boto3, and I hope it's helpful. And feel free to take this and run with it and do all kinds of cool stuff.